YouTube channel. So it makes it easier. Back when I started YouTube, you couldn't use your name as your handle on YouTube. So now it's my name. If you type in youtube.com/Julie Golob, that comes up, right? But for a while there, it was like 8675309. Not really, but close enough that people wouldn't really be able to remember it. So I bought the URL julieg.tv so that it would point to my YouTube channel.
She's definitely given that phone number out before, though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Welcome to this week's episode of the Casual Shooter Podcast. This week we have a full house. You have me, you have Leo,
Hello.
And Chris.
Hey.
And another distinguished guest we're proud to have on our show this week, Julie Golob. Julie, say hello.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
Oh, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate it. We're excited.
No, my pleasure. I'm excited.
If you would,
too.
take a minute and just introduce yourself real quick.
Sure, I'm Julie Golob. I'm a pro shooter for a number of different companies, mainly Smith & Wesson, Federal, Trojicon, Safari Land. And I have been competing in the shooting sports for many years, going on 30 this season. Managed to bring home a bunch of titles. And I love shooting sports. I love sharing shooting. And that's kind of my story.
Okay. That's a little understatement. I mean, I've been on your webpage, and it's somewhat intimidating.
Oh, I don't mean it to be.
There's a lot of titles on that page.
All I want to say is that, you know what? Tom Brady doesn't have nothing on you. They might call him the GOAT, but nah, you definitely like ahead. You're the lioness of this.
Oh, well, that's very kind. It's doing what you love is always something that's amazing, and to be able to have made this a career, I'm very, very grateful.
Okay. Now I don't know if you've heard any of our podcasts, but we usually start with get to know Julie.
Okay.
So we're going to ask you a few more personalized questions. Number one,
Okay.
favorite movie.
Favorite movie? It's probably, this is so hard. You didn't tell me this was going to be so difficult. Favorite movie is probably, I'm going to say Gladiator.
Oh, okay. That's a new one.
Ooh, solid choice.
Yeah, very solid.
I got a good thumbs up on that one. All right, I can stay on.
Yeah, that's 3 thumbs up there.
Yeah.
How about favorite book?
Oh, boy. This is really hard. I can't even. Oh my goodness, this is horrible. This is worse than the movie. I would say I like sci-fi fantasy, so I watch. I read a lot, and of course I've watched Game of Thrones, but I really enjoy the Game of Thrones series in the books. They're very, very good. You just gotta have like a notebook so you can remember all the characters.
I didn't even realize that was a series of books.
Oh, yes.
Tell him,
Very
Leo.
much so.
I keep waiting for him to finish the last one so I can read that
I know,
one.
right?
Oh, wow. Favorite historical figure?
Annie Oakley.
That was quick. I like it. That's another new one.
Had that one.
That's really
like,
good.
Ready.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Favorite gun and caliber. They don't have to be the same. So it doesn't have to be a 9mm Smith & Wesson. It could be a Smith & Wesson pistol and a 6.5 Creedmoor, for all we know.
Oh, boy. I get this question so many times, and I give the same answer. Like, it's like asking a girl what her favorite pair of shoes are. It depends on the outfit. I would say
really
my
does.
favorite
You're correct.
overall, yes, caliber would be 9mm because that's the vast majority of what I shoot. But as far as a pistol, if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be the Smith & Wesson 9mm 1911 that I won the IPSC World Shoot with. So I'm going to pick that one because it's very special. But it's a very, very
Okay.
awful question, and it's torture to answer it.
Sorry, not
Very discriminatory. All right. So what I've started doing on the fifth question is trying to find something unique to the individual. Okay. So this question is unique to Julie because as I read on your webpage, that you've traveled all over the world and you are inspired by ethnic cuisine. Yes. So this is a two-parter. One, have you ever had cobra blood?
Roe blood?
Cobra blood?
Cobra.
In Thailand, that's an exotic.
No, I have not had cobra. I have had snake, but I've never eaten cobra. I would, though.
So what's the most exotic food you've ever had?
Oh, my goodness. I've eaten pig brains in the Philippines, fish heads there as well. We've had lots of, we generally eat some bizarre foods at home. I've actually cooked grasshoppers before, believe it or not. So they're very tasty. So
lean times, I take it?
No, there were just so many of them around, When you got a plague of grasshoppers, you might as well do something.
I was going to say, we're about to hit the 17-year cicada, so you're going to be set.
I don't know if they're going to be here in Missouri, but if they are, game on. I'm ready. A little garlic, a little salt, a little olive oil, we are all set.
There you go. Now, here's the contextual question that I was going to bring up.
Okay.
I noticed your maiden name and your married name are almost the same. I almost feel like you planned that. Was that planned?
No, it was not planned. But yes, all I did was drop the ski and add a B. Yes. It worked out.
It did. You almost didn't even have to change your name.
I didn't have to change my signature at all. It's just bleh at the end. It worked out great.
Oh, that's funny.
All right. So you started competitive shooting at the age of 14.
Yes.
Okay. And then I know, according to your webpage, how you got on the Army Marksmanship Unit, but can you, for the audience, explain how you went from 14-year-olds just starting shooting to 18 years old joining the Army and being on the Army Marksmanship Unit?
Yeah, sure. Well, it all started a few years earlier than that. I would hang out at the range with my dad. We were a little range officer, dynamic duo, daddy-daughter team. And I fell in love with the shooting sports from working matches. And when I turned 14, my dad and I decided that I was old enough, mature enough, safe enough, all of that good stuff, strong enough to start competing. And so I had a foundation of knowing all of the rules of the sport, watching all of my heroes compete for so many years, that it all just came together for me when I just, pulled the trigger, the proverbial trigger, on my first match. And I started out as a very kind of timid shooter, very accurate, kind of like, okay, I'm going to hit all A's, I'm going to be perfect. And then I decided that I couldn't suppress my natural competitive streak. And by the time I was a junior in high school, I had earned a slot to the USPSA National Championships. And when I was there, I caught the attention of the Army shooting team, their action shooting team coach, and they recruited me to go directly to the Army Marksmanship Unit after basic training and MP school. So that's how it all happened.
That you had to. I can't imagine there are that he catches wind of that many shooters. So you must have really made an impression for him to come to you and recruit you.
Well, so, in all fairness, 30 years ago, there weren't that many young girls on the range. And, the Army was looking to expand its team. They were really hoping to be able to have a female on the team. And here I was, the right place at the right time, top 16 female at the Nationals. And they're like, all right, we see potential in this one. Let's see if we can get her to come in. And of course, I had a dream. When I was shooting, and back then especially, I had this big dream to become a national champion. And I knew that really the only way to do that was to have a full-time job, full-time support for it. And so, getting the chance to shoot for the Army, I was not going to pass that up.
But you did educate me. I
Okay.
thought DDT was a very bad weed killer, when in reality it's daddy-daughter team.
Yes.
I learned something new today. I've been corrected. So, you joined the Army. You went to you went and got your MOS as an MP,
Yep.
and then you went to the AMU. Now, how long were you at the AMU?
I stayed in for about 8 years, just under 8 years.
Okay. And what was your job in the Army Marksmanship Unit?
Compete and win. That's the mission statement
Okay.
of all soldiers at the Army Marksmanship Unit. Yeah.
Okay. So I noticed, and I don't remember if it was Casey or whom, but I saw some videos where they were talking about how they were also tasked with training units and marksmanship. Was that also part of your job?
So it's funny. The Army Marksmanship Unit, because of its uniqueness, it would bounce around to different heads within the military. So actually, when I was in, we fell under recruiting command for a while. So I would go to air shows, I would go to events, the Great American Outdoor Show, all of that sort of thing, to kind of work to promote the Army, to encourage new potential soldiers to come in. And then later we fell under TRADOC, which is the training division for the military, and then that sort of shifted. So, it just depended on how the funding went. And that sort of thing. So the AMU has not always been just one thing. It was a part of a recruiting command at one point. Now it's training. I still believe it is still training, but it shifts a little bit, just like everything does in life. When the hierarchy changes. So the vast majority of the time while I was in, we fell under recruiting command.
Okay. Interesting. A little bit of history
So
there.
I do have a question while Dave's looking up his next question. So you're an MP as your MOS.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you ever arrested anybody?
I have not. I have directed traffic. Does that count?
That would have been awesome. Let's tell me the story about how you arrested this guy who was important.
No, I did
Next
direct
time.
traffic.
Next time.
Like, I can do that.
Oh. We all have that in common. We've all directed traffic at some point.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We have.
Yeah.
Not something we normally.
Yeah.
I've noticed it's not on your bio page. It's not on our bio page either.
No, but it is a very important skill.
It can help.
You got to have the right hand gestures.
It doesn't, nowadays it doesn't matter the hand gesture. We, with the public and citizens, tell them to stop, and they're thinking we're trying to give them a high five.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like, no.
Yeah, no, at the AMU, when you're recruited to be in, basically after basic training in AIT, you transition directly to the Army Marksmanship Unit, and you're given a time limit. Usually it's 1 year to meet a specific set of requirements that your coach or team sets for you in order to earn, one, the black hat, the coveted black hat, so you can travel to compete, and two, to show that you have the potential enough to stay in. So that first year can be pretty stressful for a new soldier, a private, to come in and have to meet those gates, that system, and then every year it's the same thing. You always have to show progression, otherwise they'll start looking to replace you. It's a very, very competitive environment to be in.
I think I've heard and we'll get into Lanny Basham later, but I think I heard an interview with Lanny saying the same thing about how if he didn't win a match or whatever it was he was going to be kicked off the team and replaced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I imagine that is stressful. But okay, now I had a question, but I'm going to feed off of that.
Okay.
You win nationals. I mean, how much more can you progress?
Well,
You know what I mean? Like, you're the national champion. Like, all right, here's an example. Here's an example for you. Jacob Hetherington.
Yes.
He won nationals last year.
Yes.
Now, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or nor him, but it looks like he's going to be 4th or 5th this year.
Yeah.
So then how would that play into?
Well,
He's still a national champion.
Absolutely. And these are set goals. What I'm saying with these gates is that if you're an 80% level competitor, right, and your next goal is to be an 85% competitor, and you're staying at 80 or you drop down to 75, then you're basically on the bubble. You're not showing any improvement. There is an understanding that the level of competitors and the competition is always increasing, and sometimes things aren't absolutely perfect. It's not like, hey, you didn't win the Olympic gold medal this time, you're getting the boot. Especially when you're top dog, right? If you're the top performer on the team, you're safe. But there's always that element where it's the loyalty is there to a certain degree, but they're always keeping an eye on young talent because at the end of the day, it's to promote the Army and the readiness of the Army and that sort of thing. So it's not like a lot of other sponsored shooter situations where you can do a lot on social media to make up for maybe a bad match or something like that, right? It's very performance driven, and so there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. So.
Okay. So, yeah, you're just making sure that they haven't reached their ceiling, like you're saying, at 80%. Like he's made it to the 100%, so they know his capabilities.
Right. And if they have a team of, let's say, have a team of 10 for a rifle team, what have you, they're going to look at the lowest common denominator, right? who's always going to be there for team matches and who's going to perform the way they need to. And they'll look at other criteria that is important. So, it all depends on the individual shooter. And I will say this, especially when I was in, like, the coaches and the people that are in charge of the team, whether they're enlisted officers or civilians, depending on the era of the AMU, they always keep in mind the personal strengths of the person. So even if you aren't a national champion level shooter on a rifle team, if you're a great coach for your team, for like a small unit at Camp Perry kind of thing, then that's a huge thing. You've coached your team to win. You're a valuable asset. So it all depends on the dynamic and the role and what they're thinking and who's waiting in the wings. If nobody's waiting in the wings, you're fine.
There you go. That's an excellent explanation. So when you went in the Army, the military had just recently transitioned to the Beretta. Mm-hmm. What pistols were you guys shooting?
So in basic, I used a Beretta, but at the AMU, we used basically, I shot either an STI or a Caspian, depending on the year, in open division. So we were using the state-of-the-art equipment at the time. This was back when there was only 2 divisions in the sport, mostly open and a little bit of limited. So it's come a long way. It evolved. I'm dating myself. There was no production. So that wasn't an issue back then. So yes, I have shot the Beretta, the M9, but not a ton of it.
And it's funny you say you're dating yourself. I was, Leo and I were discussing things before we had the interview, and we were talking about Rob Latham and some other people, and we talked about, something we'll talk about later. But one of the things that I noticed was Ernest Langdon won the inaugural production title, and Ernest and I were at Quantico as instructors together.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, yeah. So, small world, but it's also like, wow, that was a while ago.
Times have changed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
So were you guys using like Lake City ammo, or were you using federal ammo? Like, where did you guys get your ammo?
Ammo back then, we used the boutique company Atlanta Arms and Ammo. We basically they're using a lot of that same ammo today. Working with back then Danny Weisner, he's retired now, but we shot Atlanta Arms and Ammo, and mostly 38 Super Comp, and then some 40 caliber, but. We had boatloads of it come in. And it was great, too, because it was convenient right there to Atlanta. Some of the service pistol teams used, I think, Black Hills and some other stuff. The loading attachment or team for the AMU hadn't really been focused on pistol development so much. They were really more on the rifle side of things. And after I left, that whole facility blew up and they started developing rounds and that sort of thing. So just the evolution of the AMU alone, we could talk for hours about. It's changed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, I was on the Marine Corps high power rifle team the summer of 90.
Gotcha.
And it was the same thing. Their reloading capabilities were all rifle related and not pistol. I don't know if that's changed since then, but that's how it was then as well.
I think mostly the loading facility still does a lot of test stuff. So they can say, hey, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to make. Can you, make it? And to be fair, I mean, looking at factory ammunition today compared to what it was, 20 years ago, it would never dream about shooting factory ammunition. One, because it didn't have 38 Super Comp. Who has 38 Super Comp anywhere to buy? And two,
right.
It was just not geared towards competition. Now, gosh, we have Federal Premium Syntech. We've got all these boutique companies that are coming out with ammunition for the shooting sports.
Yeah.
So it's really a neat thing to see that the development of ammunition over the course of the past 2 decades is significant.
Yeah, even the private companies that just reload ammo that you can buy, the quality is so much better. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're not going to worry about a squib or a double charge.
Right.
Some guy pulling a handle in his garage, like, I got your lead bullets.
Exactly. Now, what made you decide to leave the Army?
I was burnt out. After so many years of pushing so hard, I won the Nationals, Open Nationals in 99, Steel Challenge in 99, and the Limited Nationals in 99. And that was like a major, major year, right? And then after that, things just started to change within the Army Marksmanship Unit. I was doing a lot more less shooting, I would say, and more promotional kind of things. And it just didn't feel like I was getting what I wanted to out of it all. And it was just tired. I was tired of shooting for work and not shooting for fun anymore. So I took a break. I was like, nope, I'm done. I want to be out. I got stop loss in the middle of it, but I did eventually get out. And I took a good 6 months off. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go shoot a match again. And I fell in love with shooting sports for the same reason that I, started out with my dad at 8 years old, the people and having a fun time at local matches. And so then I started competing in divisions that I wanted to compete in and matches I wanted to shoot in. And I had so much more control over my own destiny. So it was just time. It was just time for me to go.
And I got out after 9.5 years in the Marine Corps. And I think what people don't understand is that it is exactly what you said. When you get out, that freedom, you realize that your life is no longer controlled 24 hours a day. And going back to what you said, training 5 days a week becomes a job and not, a pleasure, not something you necessarily want to do. Now it's something you have to do or else. And it kind of takes the fun out of it. Yeah.
It does. And then you combine that with leadership that changes and all of a sudden you've got somebody in charge of your team that has no idea what your sport is like. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute, you want me to do what? I kind of know what I need to do. But the trust factor isn't there, and it becomes hard. It can be draining. And everybody thinks, oh, you must have it so easy if you're shooting for a military shooting team. It is a very intense level of competition. So it's hard.
Now, so you left 6 months later, you shot a match, fell in love with the sport again. How long after that did you start, did offers come in for sponsorship?
So it's funny. I had intended when I got out of the military to actually go back to school to, use my GI Bill and get a degree in teaching. And so I was in the middle of that. It was the summertime. I was getting ready. I had all my paperwork in from the VA to go to Auburn University. Yes, I was so excited. And a week out, I'm like, hey, I haven't really heard anything from the school. What's going on here? The VA never really submitted my stuff, so I wasn't going to be a student that semester.
Wow.
I was like heartbroken and needed to start looking for a job essentially. And so I did some temp work, and then an opportunity with Glock Sports Shooting Foundation opened up, and so I was like, you know what? I know shooting sports. I love them. This is a good fit for me for right now, and I took that position. I wasn't with them for very long before Smith & Wesson snatched me up. And I've been on Team Smith & Wesson since 2006. So
nice. Well, and that's what that was part of my question was going to be, have you always been a Smith & Wesson sponsored shooter? Well, now I know.
But funny story, actually Smith & Wesson was my first gun sponsor as a junior competitor. So it's funny how everything comes full circle. I was using Smith's back when I was a teenager. So it's pretty neat.
Oh, wow. Now, what about, I noticed you just put out a video that you're part of the Safariland cadre.
Yeah.
So how long have you been with Safariland?
Well, that's another what I call legacy sponsor. I've been with Safariland for 10 years now, so a good stretch. And then now with Team Safariland being retired and cadre coming into play, it's kind of like a new thing, and it's a lot of fun. I like it because it takes some of the elements that you and I know, of course, from the military, and kind of applies them to this modern day world of social media and shooting sports and all that. So it's going to be a neat experience. I'm excited for it.
For you. I read on your website that you're the only ladies Triple Crown winner. Could you explain what that is?
So Triple Crown is basically winning 3 USPSA nationals in the same year. So that's probably going to end here with the Williams sisters and what they're doing, because those girls are on fire. But
yeah.
They're incredibly talented young women, and so we've done a lot of like Triple Crown. Used to be in the sport would be if you've won all 3, both limited and open nationals and steel challenge, that was considered a Triple Crown, that sort of thing. So it just depends. The eras have long since gone by where we even know what Triple Crowns mean anymore. But I'm going to cling to that victory because it's still mine.
Well, and that's what
that's perfect because we were so confused. We're like, so you just win 3 of something in the year? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we were trying to figure it out.
3. Yeah, no, it's funny because going back 20 years, there weren't that many matches. I mean, when you had 8 area championships, those were premier events. Then you would have a handful of things like Golden Gate and matches, and a couple matches in Texas, the Miller Invitational, that sort of thing. But everybody really tried to get to all 8 area championships. That's not so much a thing anymore because there are so many matches now. You don't have to leave your area even. You can shoot, this state match and that state match. It's really a neat thing that how the sport has grown. So a lot of those old nostalgic titles that we have, a lot of modern day shooters don't even understand. I mean, just spend 20 minutes with Rob Latham and ask some history, and it's incredible what we've forgotten. And it's kind of sad that we don't have that written down or people don't know. I feel like we should have story time with Uncle Rob on like every weekend at a podcast. I wish he would do that.
Well, and
have him call us.
Noted.
We'll do it.
Yes.
He loves to talk.
Absolutely.
100%. Not a sponsor. Don't care. We'll do it.
Yeah, I would even travel to him. Well, and it's funny you bring him up because we were doing some research again when we were talking, trying to figure this out. Rob's the only male Triple Crown winner if you go with USPSA national titles. Mm-hmm. So you're in rare company, and with the guy who has 26 USPSA national titles.
Yeah,
it is crazy how many that guy has.
Incredible. He's the great one for a reason. Absolutely.
Yes, totally agree. Amazing. So I can only imagine, like you're saying, just sit down and be able to talk to him about the history of the USPSA. What was it like when you started shooting versus now? And to think he's still at that level today. That's amazing.
It is. I mean, the one thing that I will say about Rob that what people don't really understand is he loves to shoot. I like to shoot. You like to shoot. We like elements of shooting. Rob loves to shoot. He loves it. It's in his DNA, and he's just. I think that's one of the reasons why he's an old soul in a lot of ways, but he's very youthful. I mean, he knows so much about shooting, but he's also, he's really willing to examine, even at this level of experience. It's pretty amazing. He's totally amazing. What am I saying? He is the great one. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I am, as Leo so notably stated on our last podcast episode, that I'm a nerd, a numbers nerd. And so I've been tracking.
True.
I've been tracking the low cap nationals, and he is top 5 right now. You know, through day 2, he's top 5, and the guy's been. I saw something where they were saying, you know, he's been doing this for 40 years.
Yep, 40
I'm like
consecutive.
that's incredible staying power right there.
It is.
So good for him.
Well, that actually, I know Dave has an order of operations, but that does make me think of one thing that we were talking about before you called in, which was because you have competed in, I believe, 7 different divisions, basically everything in the USPSA. Revolver. What's up with that?
What about it?
No, I'm just saying. Like,
What, you got a problem with wheel guns?
people still shoot wheel guns. No, not when they're being held by you, but you know.
So one of the really neat things that when I signed with Smith & Wesson, it opened up this opportunity, right? Like I could literally shoot every division with a gun from Smith & Wesson. And so that was kind of what I started to do. You know, I could have just, you know, shot production or a limited 10 or single stack throughout the whole time there. But I'm like, why not? And especially when we came out with the 929. If you haven't shot a 9mm revolver, you are missing out because I'm telling you, it is amazing. It's a really, really neat gun to shoot. And yes, there is a learning curve. And instead of trying to stick a magazine into a magazine well, you have to line up 8 of those, you know, bullets into the cylinder. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it is a lot of fun. And I learned more about fundamentals and shooting revolver than I did with any other handgun that I shoot. And so if you do have a chance to play with it, I highly recommend it. And even after all these years, people try to cut out the revolver division. We still stick around. The revolver shooters, they are like tenacious. So it's neat.
There just aren't many of them.
No, but it's a very consistent division. Even though it isn't a huge division, when you look at world shoot numbers, for example, it's consistent. There's a consistent number of people that shoot it. Unlike something like Limited 10, where one year there may be a ton of shooters shooting it just because of the way the nationals lay out, or the next year maybe nobody, just depending on how it goes. But it's such a unique division, and I think an important one for the sport, especially as we look at states that have such limits to what they can do, or countries that have limits on what they can do. And so that they can, they can grab a 686 and still be able to compete in this sport or what have you. I think it's important to have that there.
Well, and you get to compete with people like Jerry Michalek. So
there you go. There you go.
Not a bad way to spend your day.
Right.
And when I started competing with revolver, and I went to I-Corps and shot revolver matches, that sort of thing. I mean, the Asins, Annette and Elliot, are amazing. The Hogues. I mean, there are so many really good revolver shooters out there. And it's a really neat community. It's fun. And they're sweet people, so it's good.
So shoot 9mm revolver.
There you go.
On my list.
Yeah, my youngest son's favorite gun is a .22 revolver we have. He loves that thing.
Yep.
So.
It's a great, fun
now,
option.
When you were racking up title after title after title, when you got out of the AMU, when you were on your own, what did your training regimen look like then?
Much less training. One, I had a job,
okay.
So I actually had to do a real job during the day and not shoot. Not that shooting wasn't a real job, but so it was much different. But it made me appreciate things more. It made me understand. And this same thing when I became a mother and a parent, it made me realize that, I had been in this bubble of my young 20-something or teenage self shooting for the military, that, this is just what we do all day. And then to have to juggle everything and make time, it shows a dedication and a desire to do it. And I have a lot more respect now for parents and people who do this as just a fun hobby and have set goals while they're trying to juggle a million different things and paying for things. It was definitely an eye-opener.
And I noticed, like back then when you started doing this on your own, the only real book out there, I imagine, was Brian Enos's book.
Yeah. Beyond
that, it doesn't seem like there was a lot for training or any of, like nowadays, if I get on there there are 100 different books I could order and read, and there's videos. So I imagine it took a lot more internal evaluation to figure out what you needed to do to make Julie better.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that there used to be programs like Shooting USA was still, I think it was, what was it called? American Shooter back then. It's switched the name to Shooting USA. There was a guy, Lenny McGill, who would go around and film the Nationals. And you would get your, you put in your order and you get your VHS tape and you'd sit there and you'd watch everybody shoot. So you could pick up the skills.
Oh, wow. That was your training tape.
Exactly. And Plaxco had a book. J. Michael Plaxco had a book out there. And, and then there were the older ones, like Ed McGivern stuff. But nothing really comprehensive like there is like books of drills that you can literally find anywhere from anyone these days. And it's great that there's so much information out there. So yes, it was a lot of research and evaluation and practice. And I think a lot of that is the reason why we're seeing such fantastic growth for shooters so quickly now. Back when Rob started shooting in the 70s and all through the 80s and 90s almost, you almost had to kind of figure out what your deal was on your own and then you trained and maybe you would give a few classes here and there if you had time on the circuit. But now, because there's so much information out there, we're seeing the learning curve just go through the roof so quickly. And people are able to, used to be, you shot your first match and you'd be happy with D class for 2 years. Now it's like, no, I'm going to be in D class for a month. That's it, right? And so it's really amazing to see how things have progressed so much over time.
So, you have, as Leo mentioned earlier, you have shot a lot of different disciplines, not just USPSA, but Bianchi Cup, IPSC world titles, all kinds of stuff. Did you ever have an issue where you get bleed over of rules from one to the other or how did you keep all of those different things separate?
So, in IPSC, and USPSA, they're so similar. The only issues would be in equipment stuff. So you just did your homework beforehand, not a big deal. The only time that I've ever had some sort of like rule lapse was in the early days of IDPA compared to USPSA because, where you could change magazines, where you couldn't change magazines, that sort of thing, because they were so very specific. Now where IDPA is, it's much more similar to original USPSA, except with a couple little things that make IDPA unique. So it's not as easy to screw up as it was in the beginning of IDPA, but not too terribly. When the buzzer goes off or the target's turn, you're usually so focused within the sport that you're shooting that you're not going to mess up too much. Thankfully, I've never shot 7 or 8 shots on a target at Bianchi because that would be a bad thing.
In 2016, you and Max Michel won the inaugural Carry Optics USPSA National Championships. One, as former AMU shooters, don't you guys think that was a little selfish? Not allowing anybody else to win. Had to be 2 former AMU guys. And 2...
I never thought of that.
2, it was nice of you to kind of let other people win, but Max is being very greedy. I kind of feel like he needs an intervention, like maybe a mother-son or a sister-brother talk with you. I mean, he's just not being very nice.
No,
Sharing is caring.
Well, but we've noticed, Max has really focused in on Optics. That's his main deal now.
Yeah,
whereas before that was open. So it's just has been a transition for him. And he's always been most comfortable when he sits in a division, when he gets to spend all the time focusing on it. And that's why he's just excelled so far. There's a lot to say for specialization, and Max is a perfect example of it. Not to say by any means that he can't shoot other divisions, but he really, when he spends a year dedicated time in a specific division, and like he has with Optics, that's why you see such miraculous performances. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean he is a former Open national champion, so he's definitely, as you said, I mean, he can shoot other stuff, and he has, so very impressive. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was interesting that when I went back and looked, I was like, holy cow, they both won it the first year. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I was also on your website, and after reading everything you've done, it says you've been on MTV. And I'm like, MTV? I'm like, is there anything this woman can't do? What is she, rap? Is she a drummer, lead singer? I mean, do Pete Townsend and John Entwistle need to worry about their status in the Hall of Fame? What was MTV? You're going to have to tell us what that was.
So back when we fell under recruiting command for the Army Marksmanship Unit, MTV came to Fort Benning, Georgia to kind of do a promotion on the Army. I'm sure the Army probably paid for it. But yes, Simon Rex was the VJ, and I introduced this little segment of shooting from the Army Action Shooting Team. And so, yeah, I was a little talkie with a VJ for MTV. So it doesn't make me any cooler to my kids, but that's all right.
That's a neat experience.
It was really cool. I have a video of it somewhere.
Well, it's interesting because that was. But it's funny because that's actually how I first found out who you were. Was I went to Elite Shooting Sports in, not a sponsor by the way, here in Virginia, close to where I live, and I'm like, hey, I think I know that lady that's giving the safety talk. And I was watching the loop. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I recognize her. And then I'm like, I got to know who she is. And you introduced yourself at the beginning, but I walked in the middle, so I had to wait. And I'm like, I'm going to look her up. And I was like, okay, she's a big deal. So thank you for doing that, because otherwise it was great training for you to be on a video.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so more of a serious question. Now we're getting to Lanny Basham.
Okay.
Have you... When you were on the AMU, did he give you guys classes on mental management at that time?
Yes.
So is that something that, like, all of the AMU shooters have the opportunity to partake in?
So it was that way when I was there. I can't say for what it is now, and I got out in 2003. But basically, the AMU would contract Lanny to come out and do a series of classes so that everyone would be able to see his presentations and that sort of thing at headquarters. And yeah, I mean, I think the first time I sat through one of his talks was probably in 97 or 98, maybe 96, I'm not sure. But yes, and it was very much an integrated thing into our training. I still have the notebooks somewhere that I have and the cassette tapes that I have from those sessions and that sort of thing. But again, I don't know what they're doing with it now.
Okay. And I asked that because, I mean, him being a part of the alumni, I imagine that, and him having created that whole mental management program, I imagine that's something that he would have been doing with the shooters, but I had no way to confirm.
Yep.
Okay.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. What is Julie G TV?
Oh, that's just it's just a URL that goes directly to my YouTube channel. So it makes it easier. Back when I started YouTube, you couldn't use your name as your handle on YouTube. So now it's my name. If you type in youtube.com/Julie Golob that comes up, right? But for a while there, it was like 8675309. Not really, but close enough that people wouldn't really be able to remember it. So I bought the URL, julieg.tv, so that it would point to my YouTube channel.
She's definitely given that phone number out before, though.
Yeah,
That came up real quick.
That's like right at the top of her Rolodex.
Yeah.
I will have to say,
but we're dating ourselves right now because some kids don't know it.
Right, that is true.
I was like, oh my gosh, that came out real quick. I've received that number before.
Problem is, I was a teenager at the time.
But I was going to say was the fact that, your YouTube channel is awesome. I've watched several of your episodes, and I had to say I love it, and it's great. I love the fact how you, especially when you did your world shoot and you did your breakdowns of the stages and everything like that. So that was pretty awesome, and I think you did an awesome job. And I love how you also, on one of your YouTube channels, that you explain that you are one production woman and how you have to do everything. So that was pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, she does all of her media stuff. So, Julie, I see you have 3 books out. You've got Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition. Then you have another book, Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules, which is a children's book about gun safety. And you even have Shooting While Pregnant, a resource for expecting moms. Are there plans for any further books in the future?
I keep teasing this to people who like to follow my cooking on Instagram, and every year I said, this is the year I'm going to write the cookbook. But I do have a cookbook in the works. I don't know when I'll be able to put it all together, but that's my next project because I love to cook and we love to eat, so it works out. People seem to like it, at least all the pictures. So,
that's interesting. That's not even remotely related to shooting, so. Is it baking
it is in
or
a way
cooking?
Because it's cooking. It's mostly wild game, so I also hunt. So it's kind of a conglomerate of what I've gleaned from my travels with shooting with ethnic food rather, and then also with venison. So it kind of marries the two together in a delightful concoction. So that's what I'm hoping for anyway.
Very nice. I like it.
Well, you're making a fat kid hungry.
We're fans of venison for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
The question is, I saw it from Leo. He says, I saw your 50-round CCW maintenance drill. In the explanation, you state to use the shot timer to get the most from the drill. However, it doesn't look as though time factor enters the drill. Is this just to see if you get faster the more you shoot the drill? Question.
Yes. So a lot of the resources that I try to develop on my website are for people who are not competitive shooters. So they don't have a shot timer. So for someone who does have a shot timer, that makes things very easy. And the nice thing about using a shot timer is you can track your progress, right? You can make notes and you can figure out if you've gotten faster or if you're slowing down or if the hits synced up with your speed, that sort of thing. But a lot of people that are training, especially for CCW, don't have a timer. And even setting up something on the phone is a little bit more challenging for them. So that's in there to kind of say, hey, if you have one, it's a good idea to use it. But if you don't, get out there and practice anyway. It's still going to be a good thing.
Right. All right. Let's see here. Let me see if there's another question that comes up.
Okay.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm doing it now.
Yep, they are working on posting questions right now. So since we have that synaptic dislink.
It's there.
That's so strange.
Okay. I know, isn't it? And I sure didn't plan on this.
I can see them in the chat.
Keep your glasses on, Huggy.
Yes. Can you see that
Okay.
in the chat now?
Okay, I can see the chat too. Yes. I'm like, oh, there's a chat.
Oh, awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Ask away.
Right, yeah, exactly. 'Cause my eyes were like going, oh my God.
We could tell.
That's why I'm not the greatest shooter.
All right, so I see a question from David.
Okay, ask the question.
The question is, what are your future competition plans?
Yes.
So for right now, I am focused primarily on Action Pistol, which is Bianchi Cup, and mostly because it's very close to home for me. Everything's relatively local. Being in Missouri, I just drive a couple of hours, and I can go to Bianchi and a bunch of other matches here in the area. Plus, it's a nice way to ease back into things after a crazy year of coronavirus. So, and other things that have gone on in life. So I don't have a huge schedule planned for this season, but it's going to be a good amount for me, I think, to get back into it. And obviously, if you know anything about Bianchi, it is a very, very challenging course of fire, very accuracy intense. So it's not like I'll be slacking.
And see, Dave's got another one for you.
Yeah. So do you plan competing at the national level then? Yes. So Bianchi Cup is a national match. I have 2 area championships that I'll plan to shoot an Action Pistol this year. The rest have been canceled. And then Bianchi Cup itself. And I may or may not go to a couple state and a regional event in August. But yeah, Bianchi's in like 2 weeks. So I'm out there practicing every night and getting ready for it. And we'll see how the things play out. But it's always it's a nice match to kind of get your feet wet in, because it's 192 rounds and you can spend a lot of time in dry fire and you can be really focused on your training. So it's not like you're working on a million different things like USPSA or IDPA or what have you. And you have to like, oh my gosh, I need to work on this. And oh my gosh, I need to work on that. It's 4 courses of fire. So you're really working on those 4 things.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
What will I be shooting? I'll be shooting in the open division there. I'll be using Smith & Wesson 9mm 1911 with a Trijicon MRO and Federal ammo. Safariland rig, and it's Bianchi guns. If you haven't seen them, they look rather space age. The open guns are like unlike anything that you may have seen in other open divisions. The guns actually have wings so that you can mount them on the barricade. I have a shroud. The optic is mounted very, very high off the top of the gun, so there's a big prone pad, a big base on the bottom of the magwell, and I think mine weighs 63 ounces, my open gun, so she's a beast. But it's a lot of fun. It's a precision-based, speedier shooting sport. So.
Gotcha.
That's like 4 pounds.
That's like 4 pounds. Yes, I know. It's like 4 pounds. It's like,
it's huge.
Gotta build up the muscles. And you have to shoot it with support hand only. So, yeah, you can't be... Everybody's like, oh, Bianchi's for wimpy shooters. I'm like, have you lifted this thing? It weighs a ton. And you got to go prone fast. I mean, really fast. So.
It's like a concrete block.
Yeah. Dave just says it's like a concrete block.
Hey, now. Don't talk about my gun like that. No, just kidding.
Okay, Brick.
Okay, Brick. Well, I don't know if a brick is that heavy, though.
So have you watched or followed any of the USPSA National Championship that's taking place now in Talladega?
I've seen what has been posted, like on Instagram and a little bit on Facebook. One thing I will say is I love that we are able to see live events and see what's going on. And of course, John Scouten's there with Shooting USA, so he's going to capture a lot of the blow by blow of what's going on there. But from an outsider who may not be into the sport so much, it just looks like a bunch of people just running around and shooting. It's very hard to understand what's going on. I would love to see like a little overlay on the bottom of the description of each stage, so you could like pick up something and be like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Otherwise, it's just really hard to make things out and who's shooting exactly. It's hard, and it's exciting because this level of coverage we haven't really seen in a long time. We've seen it a few places here and there with like other TV shows and that sort of thing. So it's really great that USPSA is doing it, but I can't wait for it to be at a level where it's almost like turning on ESPN in the old days when you could see everything blow by blow of who's in contention and who's not. And that's a lot of work, I realize. But we can all dream, right?
Right.
For sure.
Right. So.
Absolutely.
I think it's awesome that they are doing this. I agree with you. I wish they would put the layout of the overview like you do on your channel, so that way, like you said, it's almost like people can see and be like, oh, okay, so they're going here to there to there to here. So nice little way for them to follow and everything like that. I think it's awesome now that they are doing this, because other friends like of mine, they know that I shoot in this stuff, but now they can actually watch the event take place and watch other people shoot, and I think it will draw other amateurs into the sport to try and to become better, marksmen themselves.
I agree. What I like about it too is we're showing so many people shooting. It's not just like if you go on Instagram and you're just following top shooters, you watch JJ on Instagram and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. Like I can't, I feel like I've got 10 left hands, right? And so you're so discouraged. Whereas if you see people who are competing in all of the classes, in all of the divisions, it's really one of those things where like, hey, I can do what she did. I can do what he did. And it kind of opens the door for the sport, which is really what we all need. More shooters, definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Dave put a couple of chats in there. You might want to.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about that. So one of the reasons I didn't compete so much last year was my oldest daughter was diagnosed with a very rare disease called juvenile dermatomyositis. It's a mouthful. I won't make you say it. But it's a very, very strange disease where the immune system can attack the muscles. And so our lives have changed a lot here. We have weekly shots of chemo, and we've been going to monthly infusions for steroids and IVIG. I came up with a little Cure JM challenge. We raised a whole bunch of money for a charity that is working to do that, and so I created a little target, and a lot of people shot it, and it's still up there on my website if you want to go have a fun drill and shoot some stars. But it's been an interesting journey, but everything is going so well, and we have done everything that we've needed to. That she's doing really, really well, and God willing, this month, knocking on everything, crossing everything, this will be her last infusion month. So we'll still continue with the shots of chemo and oral medications, but just over the moon. So very, very excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we wish her the best.
Is the challenge pistol only? I see it. So the Aim to Cure JM challenge is anything. You can shoot it with a handgun, you can shoot it with a rifle. I think I've shot it with a rifle with a M&P 22, but it's just a fun little thing. It's something you can print out at home on a piece of 8.5 by 11 and just shoot it. It's just a fun little drill that hopefully encourages people to be a little bit more accurate, because they are pretty small. But it's just something that I thought would be a fun way to tie in the people that were so gracious, the shooting community that just came out and helped us and is so supportive. So just a nice little fun thing that if they wanted to do that in addition, they could. So it's there. Is it time for my pop quiz question? Hey, remember that question. You're going to have to remember the answer. Or not, or you fail, or we're not going to count this.
Right.
Oh, he says the triangle is very small on the target. The triangle is very small. It's a challenge, right? It's a shooting challenge. You want to be accurate.
That's right? A challenge.
It is a tiny triangle. It is tiny, but you got to make everything fit on a sheet of piece of paper. So, and it all has a very symbolic kind of meaning to it. So if you check it out and read it, it'll make sense. So yes, it's tough. It's hard. You can hit it. I believe in you.
Okay.
I can't, as you obviously see, because I've got to squint and get all close up on the screen just to read.
Well, you can set the target up at any distance you want. It's totally up to you.
I don't think right here is supposed to be.
There's powder burns on the target.
Right.
It's all good. Nobody's judging.
I'm glad nobody is, because man, what I really. Leo just sent you one.
Okay, you wrote a great article subtitled Honesty and the Value of Getting Uncomfortable. Thank you. Yeah, so I just wrote an article for Shooting Industry magazine, which is basically a publication that's for gun dealers and people in the industry, that sort of thing, companies. And the whole publication is geared towards how to reach consumers, customers, and to, grow the shooting sports and the community of gun ownership. And so this one is in the women's issue this month, and it's about taking cues from other successful entities within social media, other bloggers and women presence, social media influencers on the internet, to kind of learn from them. And it focuses on being open and welcoming to women in particular, but also we don't have to sugarcoat everything either. I think a lot of times people are so delicate when it comes to matters of gun safety or gear or talking about things, because they want to be so welcoming that they think that women can't handle, or new shooters can't handle, a little tough love when it comes to keeping your finger off the trigger or that sort of thing, when we really need to make sure that these are first and foremost. So it's just a little blend of taking cues from other places and applying them to our industry. Beg, borrow, and steal. So you can bring more people into the fold. So that's what the article is about. It's also, you can read it for free online if you go to Shooting Industry magazine on their website. I don't know if it's actually shootingindustry.com or the magazine, but if you just type it out, I'm sure you'll find it. And then they have a way for you to either skim through the articles or see the whole issue online. So it's pretty cool. Virtual magazine.
All right.
That is
I'll
cool.
check that out.
I will have to say that I see the one photo that's on your website of you. It looks like you're holding a football. Is that a football that you're holding and shooting at the same time?
So, you mentioned earlier my stage breakdown videos. That stage is in the stage breakdown video that I posted today. So that is a stage from the IPSC World Shoot where you are holding a rugby ball, and the course of fire has you standing in the shooting area with this ball, and you had to hang on to it, and you're like dodging like rugby opponents, and then you had to like, what is it? Slam dunk it? It's not a slam dunk. Spike it, I guess. Spike the slam dunk it. You can tell I'm not a sports person, right? So you had to spike the ball on the stomp pad at the very, very end, push it down, and that's what activated the swinger to shoot the rest of the target. So it's a strong hand stage. But yes, everybody asks about that. Like, what are you doing with a ball while you're shooting? Like a baby, yes, but no, a ball, why? It's a fun one.
Oh yeah, I had to say I love the picture. I'm like, it took me a minute. I'm like, what is that a football?
I know.
Wow, that's definitely different. I've never seen that before, but I liked it. Being a former athlete myself, I'm digging it.
There you go. Well, definitely check out that stage then, because I walk you through the whole dealio and all that good stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
I think we're good. Obviously. If you check out my website, you can see all of the companies that support me: Smith & Wesson, Trijicon, Federal, Safariland, Caldwell, Tipton, Wheeler. I appreciate them so much, especially with this crazy season, with everything going on with my daughter. If you want to take the Aim to Cure JM challenge or learn more about Cure JM, you can go to curejm.com. I am not sponsored or affiliated with them at all. I just love to raise awareness and raise money for this particular disease that my daughter has. And they have been, for a charity, they personally reached out to me and always check in on us, and that means a lot. And then after that, it's just, if you go to juliegolob.com, everything I'm doing is all up there. It's an open book, pretty much, of what I'm up to. And,
it is.
That sort of thing, in social media. Links are there as well. I really appreciate you guys having me on. This has been a lot of fun. I love that. A lot of times when I come on podcasts, they're people who don't generally know very much about the shooting sports in general, or much less specifically about the shooting sports. So to be able to get into the finer details, and you sit with somebody and they know who Rob Latham is, but they couldn't tell you what he shoots, sort of thing, or be able to do that stuff. So this has been a ton of fun. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, we've had a great time with you also, and it has been our pleasure to have you on here, and we hope that maybe in the future, if you're available, to come back on for future episodes. So,
yes,
that would be fun. This is great. I promise I'll have better internet next time. Not only will be able to talk with all of you.
Yes, that'll be fun. That will be fun. So, thank you very much again for being on our podcast, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Okay.
I do see one more question. Do you want me to answer that one? Okay. Yep.
Yes.
So, Leo,
Yep.
are
Yep.
there any words of wisdom? Yes. Are there any words of wisdom you have for new or prospective shooters? I would say that if you're new to gun ownership in general, I can't say enough to seek out resources, seek out training to help you get on the right foot to start with. We mentioned in this podcast, how in the beginning of the shooting sports, you kind of had to figure everything out on your own to really progress. There are so many great resources out there and so many wonderful people to tap into their knowledge on how to get started in a great way. I would say more than anything, if you're going to start on learning how to shoot, work on the fundamentals and get those gun handling skills up to par so you don't have to think about anything. But after that, just explore this wonderful shooting community. It doesn't matter what shooting sport you're interested in or how you got here. It's just a wonderful place to be, and shooters are just wonderful people. We come from all walks of life, and yet we can sit here and laugh on a podcast and talk about things and do stuff, and you'll find that that's what happens when you head to the range. You'll find your people, and it's going to be amazing, and welcome.
Sounds like great advice.
I want to thank you one last time, and we appreciate everything you have said and came on the show. Again, we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Likewise. And
until next time,
don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.